thewellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives. Download the app today.
This is Up for a Chat with your hosts, Cindy O'Meara and Kim Morrison.
Here we are, up for a chat about the hottest topics that are important to you, inspiring you to awaken the change within. I'm Cindy O'Meara.
And I'm Kim Morrison. This week, what an exceptional soul. We are very excited to bring to you the amazing Peri Venakis. Now, you're going to learn a lot from this beautiful human, and I, in particular, are very excited about a number of topics, as is our Cindy. But Peri, before we go into all of the incredible stuff and the research that you've been doing, just in case the listener hasn't heard of you or doesn't know your background, could you share with us a little bit about where you're from? What drove you into this area of work that you're doing today?
Fantastic. Well, what an amazing intro, and lovely to meet both of you lovely ladies. I mean, I'm flattered. I know people can't see this, but I'm blushing a little bit as well. But my background's been in that I've been in the health industry for nearly 3 decades, so 2.5, 3 decades involved as a personal trainer or coach, originally from Melbourne. And I've always been fascinated about nutrition and the impact of nutrition, especially as I was surrounded by a lot of bodybuilders back in where I was. And with my background, I could see there was a big loophole in their approach to nutrition. A lot of the guys there were, for example, they do the chicken and broccoli diet, and they'll do a starve day and things like that. And I used to think this is a bit strange. My background was that I did applied biology at university when I was younger, and majored in genetics and microbiology. And then from there, I did a big flip and went into the motor industry, raced cars professionally, and taught martial arts in the background. So I was always trying to keep physically fit and active and trying to understand a bit about nutrition. So after I sold the business, that's why I went into personal training. I thought this is a fascinating area to be in. It was all new and up and coming in 2000. So yeah, it was great to get involved. But then I could start to see that, it was great to learn to tell people, how to do a bench press and a lat pull down and a leg press, etc. But there was a big hole missing in nutrition. And, people would, like I read a book, I think it was called Sugar Science. And all they were basically saying is don't eat foods with high sugar. And I'm like, there's a lot lacking in nutrition. So I took it on board to hang around a little bit with the bodybuilders there and see what they were doing about nutrition. And went, you guys have got it wrong. I think you guys are going about this the wrong way. And, you're avoiding some good fats, etc., in your diet. And then I started helping a few females because I realised that a lot of ladies back then didn't understand their hormonal profile and what would happen when you're dieting so hard, and the loss of a period I thought was normal. And I'm like, not really the way it is. So I did a lot of smaller courses, a lot of diplomas in nutrition and stuff like, special age populace or for children, etc., and started doing my own research about nutrition. And the old story is that the more you learn, the more you realise you don't know. And, it sort of went on and on from there. So I helped a lot of women with bodybuilding comps and produced some amazing results. So they've done exceptionally well here in Australia. I had a few girls compete in America as well at the Arnold Schwarzenegger Classic and place either 6, and second, I think, was the other girl. So really gave the Americans a bit of a nudge back then, which no one from Australia had done for a long time. But yeah, I just started realising that there was more for nutrition, there was more to be done. And as COVID sort of started to set in, and just before COVID hit, I decided to go back to university as a mature age student and did my postgraduate in human nutrition at Deakin University. Did extremely well with that, and then folded through into doing my master's because I thought, well, COVID's hit, my business is closed down, we can't work, we're in Melbourne, we're getting slammed. Let's just keep going with nutrition. So I did my master's, and then luckily enough, I got just enough points to qualify to do a PhD. And I'm like, oh, do I take the challenge? And it was suggested to me that I actually go a different pathway and look at becoming a diabetes educator. And that was probably one of the most eye-opening courses that I've done in all the years of study. It just it really got me thinking about, old age, what happens with people, the conditions of metabolic disease that occurs through poor nutrition, lack of activity, and so many other external factors that go on. And obviously there's some intrinsic factors that are happening within the body as well. So that was my big eye opener, and that was sort of my background and lead up into creating my website now, which is known as Nutrition 90 or the N90 program, which is a 90-day program. But that's basically my background, is that I've always been fascinated by nutrition. I've always realised that the backbone to success in anything, whether it be exercise, whether it be a bodybuilding competition, whether it be general life in practice, that you need to get your food right. You need to set that foundation. And the advent of ultra-processed food and all the crap that comes with that leads to so much, let's say, issues in society, and we don't realise because it's so easily accessible. And, rather than grabbing your fruit, you're grabbing your ultra-processed orange juice. It's just little things like that that really sort of rattled me a little bit. So that's basically my background in a nutshell. A number of years there I've been in the industry and trying to learn and understand the industry. And now my focus has been on longevity. So I'm doing a few courses from America, focusing on the different concepts of longevity and what we can do with that. So that's me.
So many questions now. I just want to start with Deakin University and how you handled Deakin University, understanding what you know in biochemistry and genetics and everything else. How did you handle, or have they changed? Because I went to Deakin in 1984, 85, finished my Bachelor of Science majoring in nutrition. Have they changed from the low fat, high carb, that type of thing? Have they changed at all?
It has changed immensely. So when I did my university degree, first one was in the 1980s, so that was actually quite a long time ago. Like I'm a bit of a fossil, so we try not mention that. But
we're both fossils. Don't worry, we're both fossils.
The biggest thing I learned at uni is to learn to unlearn, to just forget what you know and look at the current literature, because nutrition is changing all the time. And, we've got the concept of having a low-carb diet and, going a bit more carnivore, and then we've done the vegan approach going through that way. And then now we're starting to bounce back to say that, we need to be an omnivore. We need to be able to eat everything to survive effectively, and how we do that. Or, more importantly, that every body is an individual, and we need to address everyone as an individual, and it's not one size fits all in the process. But my concept and understanding and what I saw at university, it's always best to have a whole variety of food. Don't restrict anything. When you restrict the food group, what we're finding is that after the honeymoon period of you've cut out all the crap food, you've decided to go carnivore or vegan or whatever you want to follow, that there's the honeymoon period where you feel absolutely amazing. You think, right, this is what works for me. And then in the 2-year mark is then we start to see the proliferation of, let's say, disease or dysfunction within the body. And the only way to check that is through an intense and in-depth blood work analysis. Getting a normal GP report on, just your hemoglobin count isn't going to be enough. You need to go in delve that a little bit deeper, hormonal profiles, see what, inflammatory markers are, etc. See what your micronutrient balance is, which one big thing that a lot of people seem to miss out on. So there's a lot to it, and that's what I found has changed at uni, that it's become a lot more intense and open-minded. And basically the push with Deakin University was to say, let's eat a little bit of everything, because your fiber's important, your protein's important, your fats are important, which, we went through what was that crazy stage of your, 99% fat-free. Let's get rid of it and slam it up with sugars and artificial crap and lots of sodium, because that's good for you as well. And yeah, so that was the big changes that I found, Cindy, from university, from when I first went to now. A big change.
That's wonderful to hear. I think they needed to start changing, because I had nutritionists work for me like a decade ago for 6 years, and they weren't being taught anything different than I was taught back in the mid-80s, 84, 85. So they were being taught the same thing, and they were very much nutritionism as opposed to looking holistically at a food, looking at the carbohydrates, fats, proteins, salts, vitamins and minerals. And if they were correct, which anybody can do in an ultra-processed food, then that was okay. But I guess I think it's really good to hear them changing. So while you're at Deakin, you had a special interest, and it's actually a special interest of mine as well. Not that I've done the study you're doing, so I'm going to pick your brain about sarcopenia.
Yes, sarcopenia. Well, that was an area that I didn't even expect to fall into. When I was at university, we obviously have all the different subject areas, and I decided to pick sarcopenia because I was a little bit intrigued about it all. But then, the more I delved into sarcopenia and doing a lot of research with the university, within the university itself, and did some of my major papers for sarcopenia, it became a very, very strong topic for me and something that, applies to everyone. I mean, I'm 60 years old and, I've got to look at myself, and my friends are all in a similar age group. So it would become a very interesting topic to sort of look at university and the studies that were being brought up for us to look at. And then obviously, you're given an open-minded approach to say, well, what do you want to do? And, I think the biggest thing that stood out was protein intake and the quality of protein. There was a lot of controversy with what the World Health Authority and a paper from the Lancet that had come out that basically recommended 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And yet research and study has shown that we need a lot more than that to actually function and basically survive, especially as we get older. So it became a very, very interesting topic for me, and I delved very deep into sarcopenia. And I think the biggest thing that I found when I did my research is that there's no clear method to actually test for sarcopenia. We don't know.
Let's first define what sarcopenia is.
Okay, sarcopenia.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry. Sarcopenia is basically what we determine as a loss of muscle mass. So as we get older, we're losing muscle mass. But with that, we also find that when we're assessing that, we're looking at muscle strength, muscle density, muscle activation, muscle movement. For example, your gait. We look at muscle and your postural strength. So if your posture's changed. So we're looking at any decline in those areas or negative responses in that. So basically, sarcopenia is the loss of muscle mass. That's a general term. And then where it sort of eventuates how we try and assess that, which is not very clear. There's no clear markers. Like you can't go in and get a test and go, oh, I've got sarcopenia. I mean, you just can't do that. So that's the thing with sarcopenia. That's how it basically is, what sarcopenia is. And it's broken up into two categories as well too, which is interesting, like what causes the sarcopenia. So we've got two classes. One's the intrinsic class. So what we're looking at is that, we've got aging processes that occur in our body. So there's a dysregulation in certain areas. So for example, mitochondrial dysfunction, autophagy occurs, apoptosis occurs. We've got a low-range inflammation occurs from the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines as well. I think they call it inflammaging. That's the name, inflammaging, which I thought was a quite interesting one to have. There's also the process of the changes of hormonal balances within the human body. So, especially for females, there's a big change in the hormones and at an earlier point in life. So that's basically the first stage or the first assessment of sarcopenia. The second one is an external factor such as, let's say, lack of activity. You're not doing any exercise, nutritional intake, or, one of the things that we sort of overlook is if you've got a pre-existing medical condition. And the combination of these two things is what leads to sarcopenia, which leads to, this muscle loss because, you basically got a dysregulation, let's say, even from the nervous system, shutting down and sending a signal to the muscle to make the muscle activate to create muscle protein synthesis. And, the thing that I saw at uni and, while I was talking about the amount of protein that you need to eat is that the human body can't store protein. It has to turn it over, right? So there's this consistent turning over, muscle breakdown, muscle protein synthesis. What we need to do to maintain muscle mass is to maintain a positive nitrogen balance. So that means that we're eating enough protein in the body so that your body can actually grow muscle rather than lose muscle. And, that was the big thing. That's why when we say that, when the World Health Authority says that, it's 0.8 grams, it becomes a concern. And more research has come out that they're actually wrong in this area. And it's, let's say, I can't say it's wrong, but it's a bare minimum that you'd want someone to follow through to be able to survive in that situation. So, that's how I see the sarcopenia and what sort of goes on. It was like, for example, one of the studies we did, we looked at the old person's home and they looked at the individuals in there and they were from 60 and above. And what we were finding is that their diet included, like breakfast would be, let's say, Vegemite on toast or oats. And then at lunchtime, they're having a salad roll. And then at dinner was the only time they'd have some form of animal protein. So they'd have like a roast, whatever. So they've got a whole stack of dietitians in. Oh, sorry, not dietitians, sorry. They got a whole stack of chefs in that work with the dietitians. And what they did was they produced 3 meals in a day. So breakfast might have been, let's say, eggs with something, so animal sauce there. lunch would have been, let's say, fish with, vegetables or whatever they wanted, and at dinner again, they'd get the roast or the barbecue or whatever. And what they found was within the 3-month period, there was an increase in muscle mass. We'll start to see a change in muscle mass. So you've gone, well, wait on, we've just bumped up their protein, we spread it out evenly through the day. We're now seeing a change with nothing else done, it's just nutrition. And then the same group of people, they then introduce body weight exercises like push-ups off the wall or body squats, stuff like that. Take them out, go for a walk there to help you out with mitochondrial function and stuff like that. And they started to put on more muscle again. And then they've gone, well, we can set up a gym in here. Would you like to do some resistance training? And the ones that started doing resistance training and crazy weights, just 1-2 kilo weights, again, within a 6-month period, it was a very, very large increase in muscle mass. And that was the big eye-opener for me, to see that at any age, you can turn this around and make it a positive effect in your body to counteract the effect of sarcopenia. Because I find that today people just accept the fact that they're getting old and they're going to slow down and they're going to lose muscle mass and they're going to feel like crap and they're not going to want to do anything and they're just going to sit back and like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm getting old. It sounds like my parents were like that. My dad was a jeweler, so he was always on the bench and didn't want to move and just sat on the bench and watched TV and did bugger all. And then I bought a farm and decided to go all organic produce and saw mum and dad there. He sort of caught up a bit being Greek and they're like, oh, what are you doing? And I said, well, come and have a look at the farm. Let's build this together. So all of a sudden we're growing olives and making our own olive oil. We've got wine because they've got the grapes in there. We've got every fruit and veg. We've got goats running around. So I think mum and dad thought they were back in Greece. So all of a sudden they're being active, they're moving around, they're eating properly. Their life got better. They just started to feel so much better and their biological markers, their blood tests improved through the roof. So all the medication that was given to sort of control some of the internal problems that were going on with their body, they started to reduce them to the point they didn't need many of the medication at all. And that was a big happy point for me, for mum and dad especially.
Do you know, it's interesting. I heard somebody say old age is the relentless pursuit for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
That really hit me. And I went, yeah, it is. We're always like, oh, I'll just do it a little bit easier. I won't do that. And I don't need to go for that. Whatever it is, it's the relentless pursuit for comfort and an easy life. So ever since I heard that quote, I've gone, right, if I can walk, can I ride my bike? I don't have to take the car. I'm not a gym junkie. I haven't done gym since I was in my 20s, but I am a swimmer. And I love to ride bikes, walk with Miss Kimmy, go on hikes with 20 kilos on our back. And we love to do those types of stuff. And I think this is what's happened, is that we've lost our natural instinct to be moving all the time. Kim's a runner. She's done 24-hour runs. She's world champion, back in the day. She could probably do it again. She loves the gym. You always go to your personal trainer and she loves the gym. And I look at people that have lost their muscle and I'll assume it's sarcopenia because they're not doing anything. They're not eating well. They just don't seem to be doing well. And I know there's no diagnosis by the sounds of it for sarcopenia, but you can see it.
Exactly.
You can see it so much when I see, and they can't lift 25 kilos anymore. Like I have a farm too, Perry. So I'm always lifting 25 kilo bags of something, it'll be something like that. Or I'm lifting a heap of garlic I've just picked, or ginger I've just picked, or a heap of lemons, limes, apples, whatever it is. So I think this is what we've got to start getting back to is I think everybody needs a farm by the sounds of it, because that was what really pushed you, wasn't it? Was when you got your farm and your parents changed their lifestyle and you saw the difference.
Yeah, my dad sold his jewellery shop. He said, I've had enough. This is too good. I'll put the money into the farm and have fun on the farm. And, mum was right behind him. They were in there working away and doing all the stuff, chasing the goats around, and they had a ball. It's interesting what you're saying, Cindy, about, the lack of inactivity and how people lose their muscle. I presented a lecture to a group of high-end accountants a few years ago, and I went through their lifestyle. I said, you've woken up in the morning, you sit down to have breakfast, right? Then you walk to your car and you sit in your car to drive to work, and then you're on the 27th floor, you catch the lift and you sit down in your desk all day. Then you catch the lift to go back down and you sit down for lunch. and then you sit at your lunch, and then you're going to get the lift to go back upstairs again, and you're going to sit in your desk, and then when you finish work at 6 o'clock, you walk down to your car, you sit in your car, you get home, you're tired, so you're going to sit down and do nothing, wait for dinner, sit on the couch, watch TV, and then go to bed and be horizontal for another 6 to 8 hours. Where's the activity? Where's the, I'm too tired. I'm like, that's because you've let your reserves drop so badly and you've lost so much muscle and there's no neural adaptation for you to move, you're putting yourself into an early grave. That was the thing. So it was interesting. We got all the 12 high-end accountants that were there, and they did a 6-week program with me training. And it was all about moving, similar to what you're doing, Cindy, just picking stuff up, moving around, doing stuff. I went into their office and I went, right, we're going to move some furniture around. We're going to go up and down the stairs. 27 flight, not my problem. Get up there. Walk up, walk down. It takes an hour. Just get moving again. And it was interesting to see that after that period of time, all of them, not one or two, all of them felt so much better. Their sleep patterns improved. And then they're like, oh, what should we eat to feel better? I'm like, bingo, here we go. We've opened the doors.
Go.
Perry, I want to ask, you made the comment about the old person's home and about changing the meals and having protein at each meal. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things that I always hear is the excuse or the reason for such bad food in old people's homes, rest homes, or even hospitals is the cost. So if you're going to turn around from white toast with Vegemite on it with a bit of margarine, which is going to cost cents, as opposed to a couple of beautiful free-range eggs, maybe a sourdough bread, and some vegetables to go with that, you're talking quite a variance in price. Is that a factor that has to be brought into this, or is this something that you've also acknowledged and we can get over it?
Basically, the turnaround to that is what price do you place on the health system to monitor these people that get sicker and sicker and sicker because they're not eating properly? So we look at, what are you going to pay now for a meal, or what are you going to pay later on in medication?
But I get that's us. That's us. But some of these people don't have a choice. It's just what's put out there for them. And at the end of the day, with respect, the society is built on people being sick. We want people to be sick. That's how there's a lot of money made with a sick society. I'm just curious how you're cutting into rest homes, maybe even hospitals with this way of thinking. I agree with you 100%, but I'm just concerned about the price. Cindy said it not long ago. I think it was you, Cindy, that, most people's budgets in a hospital is $9 a day per person.
It's $6 in retirement homes, rest homes. It's $6 a day. It's disgusting, really, what we're spending on food. Like my dad went into independent living and he would go over to the cafeteria, and breakfast was, as you said, porridge or toast. And then lunch was usually a pasta dish or a sandwich. And then dinner was this tiny bit of meat with gravy that was probably Gravox. And I thought, it's going to kill him faster. That's what it's going to do, because he's always eaten well. And all of a sudden he's becoming lazy, convenience, comfort, and he goes across and doesn't cook for himself anymore. And, the other thing I keep thinking, Kim, and I agree, Kim, it is, I don't know how we can change the system around. Maybe Perry, but wouldn't it be great? Like, I think of my dad's independent living. They're in a circle, and in the middle is the community centre. There's plenty of room for chickens. There's plenty of room for a garden. You could even have a goat in there. And I just sometimes think, why is this not a number one thing that we should be doing, Perry? Why are we not doing what you're talking about, what Kim's talking about, and maybe even, like, chickens are the best things. They're so much fun. How do we change it, Perry? What do we do?
Well, here's an interesting thing. And I know we're talking about the financial structure of, let's say, an old person's home or a hospital, but one of my friends from the UK, and it's just going to be a two-part story. One of my friends from the UK was a chef, and he actually came and worked in the hospital. And he sat there and explained to them how they can change what they're offering for food with only a small increase in price. And they implemented it. They said, fine, it's going to increase the cost. It's actually worth it, because we're caring more about the person rather than the financial institution. So he created change within the hospital, and it worked well. So I don't know, it just becomes, I suppose, a policy that sort of has to happen within a hospital or an old person's home, where they go, you know what, If it's $6 a day, we're going to make it $15 a day. And yes, it's more expensive, but they're going to have a better quality of life. They're going to live better, feel better, move better. That's number one. Secondly, what we looked at as in one of the approaches that we did at uni was we looked at a low socioeconomic environment and the poor choices in food and how we could actually change it. And one of the things that I'd suggested is that because I had my farm, is that instead of having, people going and buying all the crap food or whatever, is that we organised on a Wednesday that like a local farmers market, we get all the local produce come down and supply all the stuff, but also at a reduced price because it was a special Men's Day. It was designed specifically for the people that really couldn't afford this sort of food. And they'd go up there and instead of paying, let's say, $5 a kilo for sweet potato, they were paying $3. And they got it straight from there. And there was no middleman to put the costs up, whatever. And the council then took this on board and would section off a car park area. It was an old drive-in, I think. They'd section it off, and every Wednesday they'd have all the farmers, everyone that had produce and that to come down to sell it all at a cheaper price. So the farmers were making money. The people were then able to access this food group that they wouldn't be able to get at a lower price. So, maybe they couldn't afford to buy, hundreds of potatoes, but they'd buy 50. At least they were getting something better. And that was all because it was instigated to change the way they think and what happens in that environment itself. So, Kim, I don't know the clear answer to that. All I know is that it can be done if people decide to change their thought processing and understanding of why that we want to change things and why we want to help humanity and why we want to help people.
I think it has to come from the top down, though. If you've got a CEO of a hospital or a rest home who has a belief and a faith like we all do around food and nutrition, then that would filter down. But if you've got someone who feeds their kids McDonald's or goes, eats takeaways 5 nights a week, drinks a bottle of wine a night, like that's a very hard person and mindset to change. Apart from when they get hit with an illness themselves, does that ever really come to the fore? Is there anything that you've suggested or that you've seen through your study that could actually, this is going to sound bad, how do we vet for better CEOs in these places?
Okay, well, here's an interesting one. There was one done on the guy that was running the campaign for sugar-sweetened beverages, right? So he was going on, yep, there's nothing wrong with sugar, blah, 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 this and that, whatever. When he got sick or when his father got sick, so it was a double-edged sword, he then changed his mentality. So if we've got a CEO that's having McDonald's, etc., blah, 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 and they've got to put their father into an old person's home and they're eating crap and they can see their father going through that, maybe they might say, you know what, maybe we need to look at a different way of doing that. The problem is because of the fact in today's society, the access to ultra-processed food and cheap way of buying stuff, whatever, it's just so easy. We don't look at what was around 200 years ago and say, what it was 200 years ago, let's eat that stuff. Not the crap that you get in a packet with artificial colours and flavours and sweetening, but we're a 5% of the minority. We're a 5% of what goes on out there to want to create change. And it's sad because as the populace, we're getting fatter, we're getting sicker, we're going backwards with humanity itself. And yet we've got all this, we go, wonder why this is happening. Why? What's causing these problems? And it's right in front of us. Don't eat crap food. That's a simple answer.
The World Health Organization says that if we continue on the trajectory that we're going by 2048, between 88 and 90% of the Western world will die from a chronic disease, which is basically a lifestyle disease. It's not acute. Only 6% will die from an infection. Yet what we're doing is that we are putting more money into vaccines for infectious diseases as opposed to changing lifestyle. So the World Health Organization came out, I don't know if you saw it, but they basically said we need to get rid of meat, go plant-based. And you can imagine, I just couldn't believe when I'm listening to the head of the World Health Organization going on about the fact that we need to be more plant-based, have plant-based proteins, which are not nearly as good as our flesh-based proteins because we don't utilize the amino acids as well as we utilize the proteins of meat and especially eggs. So on the one hand, they're saying, this is what's going to happen. And on the other hand, they're doing the exact opposite. So you're a geneticist. You've done biochemistry. Where is their thinking?
I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, look, one of the amino acids that plays a key role in muscle hypertrophy and follows what we call the mTOR pathway is leucine. So in plants, when you go plant-based diet, it's very, very hard to get leucine into your body. So that is a big concern for me when we look at that. Can you build muscle on a plant-based diet? Yes, you can. But it's a very, very, very difficult process. I think we just found out that there was a paper that came out about 3 months ago about a protein supplement. It was pea, hemp, and soy together, all three. And they found that in a large dose, it actually assisted in muscle hypertrophy. But then when we look at it from another perspective too, like we know omega-3s are really good for the body, to work as an anti-inflammatory process within the body. As a vegetable source, that ALA can't be converted into DHA and EPA effectively. It's a very, very, very long and slow process. It just doesn't work. So when I've had vegans that have gone on to me about that they're fit and healthy and that everything's fine and their vitamin B12, they're supplementing and all this sort of stuff, when we go and do an omega-3 analysis, you actually find out they're quite low. And, there's where the inflammation comes. And from inflammation, we get all our metabolic diseases. We start to look at prediabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, obesity. It just becomes this downward spiral. So why the World Health Authority is doing this, I have no idea. And that's why I contested the article in Lance paper that had come out when I was at uni talking about the amount of protein we should be eating. And they're pushing us away from eating animal products and going more plant-based. And to me, it's just illogical. There was actually, I read a paper a while ago about in the UK, they had a panel of 12 people and they were discussing where they're going to go in the future and how much protein you should be eating and what type of protein you should be eating. And the ultimate score was that they went also with that 0.8 value, but also more towards a plant-based diet. Now, when I read the paper, it seemed logical. It made sort of sense what they were talking about. But when you looked at who was on the panel, 9 out of the 12 were actual vegan activists. There were only 3 people that supported the meat product. So I'm like, you've got a bias there already. It's already changed. You're not getting the real actual information. What if we turned it around and we had 9 people that were pro, let's eat animal product? What would have happened then to the outcome of the discussion? So, it becomes a personal choice. I look at it from a scientific point of view that we need to eat everything of everything to survive properly, to be effective. That's the thing. And one of my key points that I say with people too is the dose is what creates the poison. So when people tell me there's certain chemicals in plants that cause all these issues, I'm like, well, you need to eat, let's say, 3 kilos of spinach in one hit and then raw to make you sick rather than what you're saying. It just, I get a little bit dumbfounded. And like I said, as a scientist, I'm trying to be objective with everything and look at it from a practical point of view. And I'm just going, no, well, I don't agree with this. And, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Everyone's entitled to their view. I get that. But my opinion is that this is wrong. We're heading down this pathway. It's like you're on a railway track and there's a brick wall at the end of it. And when we're changing all these, litigations and rulings and expectations and scientific journals on what we should theoretically be eating, we're going to crash into that brick wall. And then when we get to that 25-year mark and we're all dying off, they go, oh, we've done something wrong. What do we need to change? Oh, let's increase the protein intake. A bit late now.
A bit like the low-fat thing, margarine versus butter, breakfast cereals versus eggs. We've made many, many mistakes. But, one of the things, because I love nutrition as much as you, it sounds like, and, one of the things that it's kept me in good stead is that I have 2 things that are my guiding lights when I look at diets or foods or programs or whatever like that. And the first guiding light is, did we eat it as ancestors? Did our ancestors eat that type of food? Mm-hmm. So we look at margarine versus butter. There's your answer. Butter, our ancestors ate. Did we eat breakfast cereals or did we eat whole grains that was soaked, maybe and fermented and cooked? So it was all in the preparation. Did we eat vegetables? Yes. Did we eat fruit? Yes, if it was available in our area. Did we eat meat? Yes. Did we eat fish? Yes. So I always look at it as, well, what was that food that we consumed or our ancestors consumed or what we evolved to eat anthropologically? And the second one is, and I noticed this on your website, the same thing, is the philosophy of vitalism. So looking at the food for its wholeness, not for its component parts. So let's take butter. They took butter and they said, oh, it's 50% saturated fat. and took it off the plate. Well, what was the other 50%? They didn't talk about the omega-3s and the X factor and all the other beautiful fats that are the other 50% of butter that help with like butyric acid and things like that help with our gut and help with so many other things. So I'm like, they have, like, you've been in it as long as me, and that has been my guiding light for 40. I'm on my 44th year of nutrition. And that has been my guiding light, and it has never guided me wrong. Even now I'm seeing, as you will be seeing, that carnivore vegan polarity. You're either one or the other. There's nothing seems to be in between at the moment. And I understand why people are doing this, and I understand why some people can't tolerate plants due to what we've done to their guts and their microbiome. And I understand the vegan movement because it's, I'm going to save animals, I'm going to save the planet, I'm going to do this. But to me, what's happening is that we have this like unknowing why. Why do we have to go to these extremes? Why can't we just stay in that omnivore, seasonal, local type of thing? Melbourne, you'd be hard pressed for any mangoes happening down there, though, wouldn't you?
And pineapples as well too. But, I mean, look, you've made a very valid point. I think it was a while ago when we were talking about the introduction of margarine come out in 1962 or 63, and within 5 years of that, we had the highest rate of heart disease and dysfunction that had occurred. So there may be a correlation there. Who knows? It's a thing. And what you're saying about eating everything in the whole foods, etc., I'll definitely agree with you 100%. And, this extreme way of eating, I just don't agree with. I mean, we all get told the Mediterranean diet is the best diet to have. And that's basically eating everything. So why are we then forgetting that and going, no, I'm going to be a vegan? And I understand if you want to do it for ethical reasons, I get it. But if you're doing it because you think it's a better way of eating, it's controversial, right? And the same with carnivore again. If you're going to carnivore and you're thinking, like you said, that some of the plant-based diets are causing you issues, there are ways around it. There are ways to repair your gut. There are ways to get you back to getting that good fiber, micronutrient balance in there to help your microbiome start to rebuild itself and get itself back on track. But people don't look at it. It's, like I said, there's that honeymoon period. Oh, I've stopped eating these vegetables. I'm eating meat. I feel fantastic. And then, they got to perform and they got to lift things in the gym and they're weaker, or they got to do a run and they're slower. And you're like, well, do you realize carbohydrates are needed for energy? And look, I think the biggest problem that I've seen with society, because of this translucent effect of eating lots of food that is basically energy dense and nutrient poor, that our bodies have lost that metabolic ability to be able to use either fats or carbohydrates as a fuel. We're eating this thing and it just gets stored as fat. It's causing a metabolic disease. We're increasing insulin sensitivity, etc. So then when you eat a carbohydrate, your body doesn't know what to do with it. It's going to store it as fat. Or you eat a fat, you're going to store it as fat. It's, it's getting the body down back to a point where, you're just eating a little bit less of what you need to keep your body working effectively. And then when it gets carbs, it goes, bang, I know how to use it. Or I get fats, I know how to use it. Rather than go, it's a storage source. It's not regarded as a storage source. So in excess, that creates, a health problem or dysfunction within the body. To me, I find it very strange to understand, but also I do get it when you're eating a lot of processed crap food. And, hopefully we start to slowly steer away from that. I always tell people, if you've got something that's got a number on it or a chemical explanation on it, tell me what it is, what it means. And they go, I don't know. I said, well, go buy the book, The Chemical Maze, and see what that tells you. And when it says it's bad for you, maybe you shouldn't eat it. Or how about we go one better? Like you're saying, Cindy, let's go back to the old way and go, was it here a few hundred years ago? No, then don't eat it. I don't believe eating a Mars bar that's going to turn you into a human being. You get this stretchy, plastic, crappy thing, and you think I'm going to be God and make you into a human cell. My mind's a bit curious about that. I'd rather go out and get something out of the earth and eat that and be very, very happy.
I think what Cindy said before about aging, it's a relentless pursuit of comfort. I wouldn't even say that that's old people. Like, maybe the biggest problem is us all wanting instant gratification. And if we can eat a bar rather than cook it in the kitchen, if we can buy something over the counter rather than go home and get all the ingredients to realize we haven't got one. It's the same thinking in liposuction when I was studying years ago, and I'll never forget a client who just was not into eating well, was carrying a bit of body fat, she looked worse after the liposuction because the fat went and the fat actually gave her shape. Now she had this flat butt and no shape to her, and she looked awful. And so I kind of also look at it that people join a gym or a swim club or whatever, and they go for a week or 2 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks, maybe even a couple of months, until they go, yeah, too hard. And they realize you can't buy the biceps, you can't buy the strength, you can't buy the cardiovascular fitness. So if we are the problem, then maybe there's the thing that you're created with your N90 program. Perhaps you could give us a little bit of information around that, because maybe that's what someone who's sitting there, intelligent perhaps, but yet don't really know what to do or who to trust anymore. Tell us why N90 is a way to go.
Okay, well, the N90 program it's basically a whole food nutrition program, and it's designed specifically for the individual. So what it does is we have an in-depth questionnaire that you fill in, and we look at your lifestyle activity, we look at your body fat analysis, so we get you to do your own BMI measurements, etc. And we put all this information in, and behind the scenes there's a formula that I've called the VENA formula, which is based a lot on the scientific information I learned from uni. But more importantly, the 25 years in the health and fitness industry, where the experience of problem solving is combined with what I learned at uni. So when I looked at my nutrition plans a while ago, I said, I can see why they work, but I can see how I can make them better. But I can also see how the university stuff is practical and not real life situation. So the N90 program basically looks at that. And what it does is it doesn't go, here you go, eat this and walk away. We take you through a 90-day process, and each stage, where there's 6 stages, goes through a different eating modality. So the first stage would be, let's say, clean eating, where we basically get rid of all your junk food and we say, just eat this, don't weigh anything, just get into the habit of eating whole foods. And we start with that, and we'll tell you, here are the foods to eat. And we have a food list. And in that food list, we've gone through, like, for example, the Monash University FODMAP diet, and I've gone through all the foods from there. So we've got no inflammatory foods in there. And then I've looked at the glycemic index of those foods. So I've gone, all right, I don't want your blood sugars to come up high. So we've got anti-inflammatory foods and foods that are, let's say, controlling your blood glucose levels in your body. So we've got that list there. We've got your protein list, which will tell you what to eat. We give you a fruit list, etc. And then you pick the foods that you want and you start to cook and prepare them. And yes, you learn how to cook. You get back to the way you should be. So that's the first stage. Then the second stage, based on the information you give us, we then start to control your calories. So we put you into a slight deficit. And what we're doing with that deficit is to stimulate fat metabolization. So we start to lose a little bit of body fat, but the protein intake and the carbohydrate intake is at optimal levels for your body to perform and, let's say, turn it back to time of sarcopenia. So we go through different stages with all of that. And towards the end, we go into a stage known as carbohydrate cycling. So what we do is one day we'll give you some complex carbohydrates, let's say like sweet potato, and then the next 2 days we'll only give you like vegetables and salads. So they're all very, very low carbohydrate intake. And we modify the protein and fat intake on those 3 days so that the calories are about the same. So now all of a sudden your body's exposed to an environment where it's getting carbohydrates in, and it can use those carbohydrates as a fuel source. And then the next 2 days, what we're doing is we're pulling those complex carbs out, and your body's now learning to use fats as a fuel. So we bump up the fats a little bit, we bump up the protein a little bit. So your body goes back into that process of becoming metabolically flexible, which if you Google it, you'll see it is the healthiest way to live your life. And then the final stage, we go, right, if we're looking at elderly and they need to bump up their protein a little bit more, let's knock it up a little bit. We'll knock up the protein a little bit, pull back the carbohydrates a whisker, adjust the fats accordingly so the ratio is correct, and the calories are still the same. And we look at the benefits of human beings eating extra protein, especially as we get older. So at the end of the 90 days, we tell people this is where your journey begins. This is now you get your life. I've turned it around from you being, let's say, diseased or having a problem where you've gone to your doctor and they told you you're pre-diabetic. All of a sudden now, theoretically, the 90 days, that should have been turned around and you should be on your health journey. And in the process, there's an education system in there. I explain to you what you're eating, why you're eating. Everything's scientifically backed. There's scientific journals there if you want to read them as well. I even show you how to cook, show you how to steam your sweet potato, show you how to, let's say, barbecue your meats, all the stuff. I put a whole food supplement list in there. So I give you your olive oil, your Celtic salt, etc. And I put all the scientific evidence on why these are beneficial for you as a human. So in the end, you've learned how to eat. You've learned what you need to eat. You've learned how much to eat. Now you're metabolically flexible. Now go back and get your blood test done. See if you've turned back disease and dysfunction, and then start your journey into a health way of basically now this is the way to lead your life where you know what to eat, how to eat, and the quantities you eat. You can give a bit of a variance. And if you do want to go outside the square and eat something, let's say processed, it's not going to be detrimental to your health and well-being because we still believe in the 80-20 rule. It's not my way or the highway. We still allow for a bit of flexibility. But in the 90 days, like we restrict your caffeine intake, we restrict your alcohol intake because we look at them as toxins and poisons to the body. So until we get you healthy, we take them out. So then if you want your glass of wine after dinner on a Friday night, that's fine. Or if you want a cup of coffee early in the morning after you've eaten your meal, not before, after you've eaten your meal and digested a bit and then have a cup of coffee, that's acceptable. But during the 90 days, we're a little bit stringent because we're focusing on your health and well-being, which will then lead to a weight loss system as well too. Because if you're getting healthy, you're going to get lighter. It goes hand in hand. These quick fix, let's lose weight program, I can write up easily, and that's stupidity because you lose the weight, put the weight. This is an education process and it takes 90 days for you to learn and create new habits to be healthier and live better, have vitality, have strength. And, we talk about getting older and being comfortable. Have that being older, being comfortable, having lots of energy to do what you want. And then you can relax at the end of the day.
Yeah. So you're not only helping people that, may have that sarcopenia, but you've been helping people, fitness models, is it? Or sculpting?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I've gotten into initially I was in the bodybuilding industry and basically got more into female bodybuilding because I realized there was a problem with what was being offered as nutritional advice at the time. I mean, they were following the same protocols as some of the silly males at the time, just having chicken and broccoli and no fat at all in their diet, and they're wondering why they've got no energy, why they're losing their period, etc. And, the amenorrhea is a bad thing to have. So when my girls were having lamb chops with butter on it as a process of leaning down, people were going, this will not work. And, I could at least brag and say that when my girls walked on stage, they either got first or second, and everyone used to say they've got the best legs in the industry. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. And guess what? They're not starving. They're actually eating food coming into a comp. So yeah, my fascination with nutrition started back there with them because I could see loopholes. And initially you think, oh, yeah, well, these are bodybuilders, they must know what they're doing. And then you realize they actually don't. It's like, my mate reckons this, or this girl did that. And I'm sitting there going, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. How do we maintain your muscle mass while you're dieting down? And, bodybuilding is an extreme sport. It's not healthy, right? But to get someone in a condition to get it right, you can get there, but you can do it a little bit smarter, a little bit healthier. Maintain your period and get on stage and look phenomenal. And people say it's impossible to be that lean without taking drugs. And I'm like, test anyone you want. No one will get busted because they're all natural.
Yeah, I think the all natural is quite amazing. And we have a friend, Kim and I, who is world champion of natural bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm watching her now, and I've never seen her beef up like she's beefing up right now. So my assumption, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but my assumption is she has to be taking something, or can she build tremendous amounts of beef and muscle? Because can she do that without medications?
Okay, so the answer to that is simple. It's genetics. I have had a girl from Western Australia that I trained, and everyone said that she was taking steroids. And I'm like, well, drug tests are at the top. There's no problems at all. And she was a genetic freak. We gave her the right amount of food, etc., and she just grew quite quick. Okay. But she stayed lean in the process, and that's the trick. That's what you need to watch out for. I had another girl from Sydney. Her name's Venakis. She's nearly 6 foot tall, and she had bigger arms than me. So, it's a genetic thing where training someone like that, if they're a genetic freak and you put in the right formula and feed them properly and train them accordingly to what they're eating, they can get some amazing results. So, I'd have to see your friend and have a bit of a chat to see, but, it can be done naturally. It can be done, basically on genetics. There are other people that we call, they're non-responders. They'll be in the gym and smash themselves out and they'll eat properly and do everything. But the problem is that they're not going to get the results that they'd like to see. So again, you've got to look at them as an individual and work out how you can sort of crack the code to help them out. And, will they put on 10 kilos or will they put on 2? It all becomes an individual thing in the end. You know, out of all the girls that I've trained for years and years, there's only been 2 girls ever that were put on steroids. One was a girl that had come from overseas and her boyfriend, who was a steroid idiot, was injecting her with steroids. And the only way to clear her body up was to get her back onto a HRT program with an endocrinologist and control her system all the way through to get her back into a healthy range where she didn't need anything more. And then another one was one of my girls that competed over in America. She was going up against girls that were on gear for many, many years. And she only went on gear for 6 weeks with a very, very small dose and just to look a bit fuller. And that's all it was. And, you know, I wasn't too proud of that. But she insisted. And I said, well, if you're going to do it right, let's do it properly. See my endocrinologist. Let's work on that. And it was only the last 6 weeks of the program. And she placed second in the world. So she was quite happy. And that's with the IFBB, where all the girls looked like men. And, yeah, crazy. She was just a little Asian genetic freak as well, too, that did extremely well overseas. But yeah, it can be done naturally and they can turn it around. Well, here's another example. I had a lady who had 6 children and she was turning 40 and she goes, I want to do a bodybuilding comp. And I'm just went, all right, I had a look at her. I said, give me 2 years out of your life. So 2 years training with me 5 days a week. And yes, it was an expensive process, but they had a lot of money, so it didn't matter to them. 2 years later, she competed up against 20-year-olds and there was 14 girls on stage and she placed 6th. And then when she finished the comp, I already told the promoter about her. When everyone walked off, they then got all her 6 children walk up on stage and go, this is my mum, where she's got 6 kids and she's got a 6-pack. So, boom, there you go. So it can be done.
Well, I look at the work that this young lady is doing, and she has 3 children. And I look at the work she does. She works hard, like 5 hours at the gym, I would say, every day. And she can't go any further than she was, you know, as a fitness model or whatever they call that. So she's going, I'm pretty sure she wants to compete against, you know, the next level, whatever that is. That's what I think she's going for. And she's one determined, incredible young lady. So I admire her in what she's doing. I don't know if I could commit like she commits. I would like to commit for my butt. Like, I've noticed I have sarcopenia in my butt. Nowhere else. Everywhere else I'm fine. It's just I've noticed my butt just kind of flattens a little bit instead of that curve. So maybe I need to come down to Melbourne and you need to give me some hinters of what I've got to do.
Well, I'm in Mooloolaba, so you're fine. I moved up here 2 years ago.
Well, not with you. Where's your farm?
Back the in farm Melbourne? Was in Heathcote in Melbourne.
Heathcote?
So I've actually sold up now and I've come up here, yeah.
Did you buy a farm up here?
No. But I heard about your farm. I was like,
you can come and work on my farm any day you want. I have to tell you a story about our farm. So we have a girl cow that we've had for a long time. Her name's Alice. She runs the herd, and we realized she was pregnant. And a couple of days ago, we noticed that there was some stuff coming out of her bum. And we thought, has she had the baby? Where's the baby? And we looked everywhere for the baby. I didn't. My husband and my son looked everywhere. I was away. Looked everywhere for the baby. Couldn't find it. Next day, she had more stuff coming out. Still couldn't find the baby. 2 days later, we put the herd into another paddock, not the paddock that she would have given birth in, but into another paddock. And we noticed all the cows, but she wasn't with them, just mulling around something. So my husband and my son went down there, and here's the calf.
Oh.
Calf had been born, and she or he, I don't know what it was there for 2 days. What we know of. So Brogan picked it up, took it to Alice, the mum, and she licked it, got up, started milk drinking, and now it's fine.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's a good luck story. I was a bit worried that you're going to say that.
I know it's a farm story, but you can come up and work on my farm anytime you want. I love that.
You got the farm last year when I was doing it at the last year's summit. Is that right?
Oh, no, I've had it 9 years and 1 month and to about 3 days.
13 minutes. Yeah.
I know exactly when I bought it. Yeah, I bought it the 6th of April. I was up there the 6th of April, and I just thought it's 9 years today. At 2 p.m. it was that I purchased a property I'd wanted since I was 19. So I
Fantastic.
was in my 50s before I got my goal, but it was a good time to get it. It was the only time to get it. Any earlier, and I wouldn't have been able to devote the time and do everything to it. But yeah, I love all my babies because we breed. And then we usually sell our animals to other farmers that farm like us, regen farmers.
Oh,
So
yeah,
the last
fantastic.
2 years, we've been able to we don't want to sell them to the sale yards. We want to sell them to other farmers who need cattle that understand electric wires, and they come at a call. Like my son just goes, "Come on," and they follow him. They follow him everywhere. They love
Yeah.
him.
That's funny you say that. We had, like I said, we had 130 goats on our farm, and my dad would sell them off to the local farmers. Wouldn't go anywhere else. But my dad had one, and he called it Harry, and he'd yell out, "Harry, come here!" And this thing would run to him like a dog and follow him around and go in. I'm like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, it comes in the house." I'm like, "A goat in the house." Guess what? Comes in, just follow around. My dad sits down. The goat then sits next to him. I'm like, "I've never seen this in my whole life ever." So yeah, that was one goat that would never get sold.
There's a guy I follow on Instagram whose cow comes into the house and he feeds it and he does his nails. I have to send it to you. I would love to just bring something back, if that's all right with you guys.
Yes, yes.
Perry, my mother-in-law, she's 79, and her new lover, who they met when they were 17, and they're together now in their late 70s. That's just so cute, the whole story. But about 15 years ago, her partner was told, who was the head of the police force in New Zealand for a long time in the drug squad, that he was showing markers for dementia, Alzheimer's, and was not very healthy. Mm-hmm. He took it on. And for the last 15 years, he's basically been keto, paleo, whole food, very mindful of what he eats, almost fixated in some things where he wouldn't eat chicken, or you know how you said before some foods were banned and we shouldn't eat this, that, and the other. He kind of went down that path, gave him Cindy's book, Changing Habits, Changing Lives. And my mother-in-law, who thought, just old, I'm too old. She's had a hip replacement. She had an aneurysm. Anyway, he won't let her go out for coffee now until they go to the gym. And she's just got more energy. She looks amazing. And I just thought, she started in her late 70s. And so I just wanted to bring back that beautiful point you made, that we're never too old to do this. And if my question around it is, if we do start out, no matter what age we're at, what would you say to anyone listening to this, whether they're a mum that's ready to start getting back on track after having 2 or 3 kids, whether it's an older person who's told, you're old, whether it's a male who's hurt himself and he's put on weight, whatever the story, is there an overall way of approaching it with the N90 or yourself personally? What are some tips you can give us?
Oh, yeah. Firstly, I mean, the foundation of anything, like I mentioned earlier on, is nutrition. So, getting your nutrition on track. So following the N90 program would be ideal because it is catered for the individual. And the interesting thing with the program is that we look at your physical activity level. So if you do an hour in the gym, you plug that in and it changes the formula. Or if you've lost 5 kilos, you plug that in and it changes the formula again. So it's very interactive all the way through. So the first thing is obviously nutrition. And then secondly, what I'll be looking at is some sort of activity. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can start off with a simple 5-minute walk, and then the 5-minute walk becomes a 7-minute walk. You might do some 10 body squats. You might do some push-ups off the wall, or you might want to take it to the next level and go get a personal trainer and get moving again. I mean, one of the biggest things that we were teaching in Melbourne was functional training. So all 3-dimensional movement patterns with a very light weight, and the results we were getting was incredible. My oldest client was 89 years old. She was lovely. She'd come in and dye her hair purple for me because for some reason she thought that I liked purple hair. No idea. But she goes, "I've dyed my hair for you." But I would give her a dumbbell, right? I'd say, "Here we go. We do some bicep curls," and I'd show her. She'd smile at me and goes, "What are we doing?" I'm like, "I'll grab your hands and show you," because she'd forget. But her daughter said to me, the difference in the way she moves at home and how she gets around the place and how, more importantly, gets out of the car and not struggling, it changed her life at 89 years old. So at any age, you can do anything. We had a guy that was looked after by an exercise physiologist where they did an experiment for his university at our studio. And the old guy was 68 or 69 years old. They did a muscle biopsy test in his quads, and then they put him on a 9-week or 15-week, I forget how long it was, exercise program focusing on using the leg press. So it was safe, it was simple. They then did a muscle biopsy test on him after that period. It put on an extra 30% more muscle mass in that area. So that was his, his scientific research he was doing at the time, and they used our studio to look at that. And I've never forgotten that. I thought, look at this old guy. He's a gun. And he used to love riding his bike and doing more cardio work. Then all of a sudden he's doing weight training. His body just lapped it up. Now, I don't know what he did with nutrition. I don't know what he did with anything else, but that was part of the exercise. And to see that at any age, it's like the old story. Eat, move, be healthy. Have a good attitude. Get a good night's sleep. Get up when the sun's up. Look at the sun. Get your cortisol levels down. Eat a good nutrition food. Make sure you balance out your protein through the day so you're getting good animal protein source. Get some activity in there. Move your body. Don't be docile. Try and do 20 minutes each day. Simple. And then build it up. Because it's the old story. When you run up the hill the first time, it is so difficult. And 3 months later, you run up the hill and it seems so easy. The hill's the same. You've just changed. So if you want to get yourself healthy, that adaptation process, yes, in the beginning will be hard, but then at the end it'll be so easy, you'll think, hey, I can do this every day. And that's the whole idea of it, because we're designed to move. We're designed to fuel our body with good nutritional food and have a good night's sleep to recover.
Such good advice. Such good advice. I know someone will be listening to this going, okay, does it matter if we get organic foods? What about mercury and heavy metals and fish? Like, where do you go when it comes to the actual dynamic of the food that we choose to eat on the N90 program? Or is that important to you or not?
For me personally, it is important. I prefer organic food. We're basically trying to avoid all chemicals and pesticides, etc. But also, I look at the cost, and we mentioned financial issues earlier on. So if you're struggling and you can't go out and buy an organic sweet potato, but you can get a sweet potato from Coles, get the sweet potato from Coles. That's the reality of it. I'd rather you get that than rather than go out and get a packet of sweet potato chips that are processed to crap and say you're eating that. So it all becomes a financial thing in the end, unfortunately. And that's the sad part. I wish organic food was made more readily available for everyone. And I know there's been a lot of controversy in people saying that organic food and, the regular based type food is the same, etc. On a personal level, I don't agree with that at all. I prefer organic food. My farm was totally organic. I remember when we first laid out all the vegetables, and then we made a garden area, and we had a massive, massive area there. My mum goes out and buys a packet of slug and snail killer. I'm like, what are you doing? I go, it's organic. She says, yeah, it's good. The chemicals, it's all good. So I've gone to the local produce, bought some rock salt, put rock salt all around the area. My mum's like, what are you doing? I go, watch. The next day, all the snails are eating the rock salt. They've died. Then all the crows have come down, eating the snails. They're pooping into the land. I'm like, there you go. We're fertilising the soil. It's all done. So, that was my concept with it all.
So good.
And I agree with you. We can only get what we can afford. And thank goodness the government is looking into how much Coles and Woolworths are increasing their prices on the produce. Because I know I sell my garlic and my ginger and things like that. And I have friends who have chicken and meat. And what they're getting at the farmer's gate and what the grocery stores are selling for is outrageously different.
Yeah.
And even our cattle were once $6.60 per kilo. Now they're $3.30 a kilo, but the meat hasn't come down. So I don't know who's making the money. But I really feel if we can go to our farmers markets, especially like Kim and I, we go to Kawana Farmers Market. There's also Yandina. There's there's one at Malani. There's one at Noosa. They're all over the coast. And I just think if we make an effort to support our local farmers, then it's direct from farmer to us. And perhaps we can see these prices come down. And the more people that do it, the better. And hopefully everybody who listens to Up for a Chat and has listened to this with you, Perry, because this has just been the best. I love that last bit that you just said, that unbelievable summary of what we need to do. And it sounds like a lot, but it's just little things that our body naturally needs to do. and we can get it right. So I want to thank you for being an amazing, energetic, incredible guest that can help anybody from any age, whether they want to be a fitness model or whether they're 89 and they just want to get moving again. I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for the experience and the opportunity to be on your show. I mean, I've got a lot of admiration since last year when I was there and had my stall and producing and selling the N90 program in its infancy, but always obviously followed your stuff, and obviously I know Natasha as well too. So thank you so much. It's an honour and a privilege to be on your show, and look forward to being at the summit again that's coming up in Canberra.
Yay, thank you.
Perry, I also just want to say thank you for being a beacon of light for all of us, and particular an inspiration, I would imagine, for a lot of people, perhaps over 50, who feel like it's normal to age and be on medications for the rest of our lives. I think you give such an absolute insight of light and hope and trust and science, but also what I feel, and I think Cindy would agree, is there's a whole lot of freaking good love in there as well, which is what makes all of this enjoyable, is to have some fun with it, to laugh, and to also love what we're doing. This is a privilege. Our body, we see our bodies as temples, as incredible privilege to age, and we want to skip into our grave wondering, that the last thing we say is yippee. That's how we'd like to go. So we just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Kims, and I'm glad you understand my, let's say, views on life, nutrition, activity, everything. I believe that, as you get older, you want to be right to that finish line, not dragging your butt on the ground and hoping you're going to get there. It's like, I'm going to get to that rule and bang, it's all over, with a big smile on my face. So thank you once again, Kim. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives.
Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.